enable video. So some of you, what is the last topic that we discussed? Okay, class coordinator, please come online now. Yes. So we have done till asymmetric federalism, right? Case of federalism, we have done till unequal federalism. So have we completed entire preamble? We have completed entire preamble and we have started with federalism and we have discussed till unequal federalism. Very good. So federalism is also over. I will make a quick revision and then we will move on to the next parliamentary form of government. See, the word quasi-federal means federalism with strong center can also be called as quasi-federal. So we are not completely federal. We are federal with unitary features. So that is why we call it as federalism with strong center. Okay, so let's have a quick review. Okay. All of you can see the screenshots, right? Sorry, the PPT, right? Okay, done. So federalism. So what is federalism? Two or more states and there is division of power. So whenever they ask you to define federalism, there will be two or more governments, two or more governments, and then there is division of power between the two. So we saw there is union list, state list, and concurrent list. And we also saw what is the unique form of federalism or uniqueness of Indian federalism. Uniqueness of Indian federalism is we have a federalism with strong center. Then we have flexible federalism. Okay. We have a federalism with strong center. We have a flexible federalism. Then we have cooperative federalism. And then unequal federalism. Okay, cooperative federalism. Okay. So now, what is federalism with strong center? We have a strong government because the union list is more compared to the state list. And when you in concurrent list, when there is a conflict between union list and the state, or parliament and the state legislative assembly, parliament will prevail. Then Article 356 is there, which says that the central government can remove the state government. That is why we say federalism with strong center. Okay, then flexible federalism is normal times we will be a federal country. When there is a declaration of emergency, Article 352, we become a flexible federalism. And cooperative federalism is cooperation between the center and state. It is opposite to competitive federalism. Then we have unequal federalism, meaning the states are not equal, they are unequal. States are unequal. Rajya Sabha seats are different for different states, and some states is having special provision, including northeastern states, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, etc. Okay, we will be exactly seeing what is the special status later, but there are some special provisions to protect certain states. So that is why we call the federalism as unequal federalism. Okay, the next is parliamentary form of government. So from here on, we will be seeing in detail parliament form of government. So I just want to tell you again that we are talking about the salient features of Indian Constitution. In the salient features of Indian Constitution, federalism is over. Now the second topic under salient features of Indian Constitution is parliamentary form of government. Okay, what is a parliamentary form of government? It is there in order to ensure a responsible government. Responsible government. Now, what is a responsible government? How to make a government responsible? You have to make it answerable. Okay, answerable. Now, just imagine a situation at your home. Okay, what happens at your home is they give pocket money for your UPSC preparation, right? Now, the first 3 months of UPSC preparation, all your pocket money, all the money that is given to you, you will use it in buying books and UPSC related things. Fine. But slowly, whatever funds that is given to you will be diverted to other extracurricular activities. Okay. I don't want to mention what kind of extracurricular activities, but you will waste your money. But just imagine if your parents are asking a habit of asking question to you. How much you have spent, in which area you have spent, like that. If they're asking question to you, automatically you will think twice before spending money. So you will become a very responsible person. If the parents are not questioning at all, okay, what will happen? You will never worry about your expenditure. You will lavishly spend. Okay, so likewise, if you want our government to be a responsible government, if you want our government to do only good things, we don't want the government to do bad things, we want to make government answerable regularly. So how can we make the government answerable? That is the institution of parliament, parliamentary form of government. So in parliament, MPs ask question and the ministers has to answer. Ministers answerable to MP. Okay. So recently also it was in the current affairs that parliament, they cut down the questionnaire. So opposition and important people in polity, they criticize the government, telling that the very soul of parliamentary form of government is asking questions and minister answering. Now, if you cut that session itself means, then there is no use of having the parliament. Parliament is not just there to pass law, but also make the government a responsible government, accountable government. Okay. So we can also say the government is accountable. Okay. So before going to see the definition of parliamentary form of government, we have to talk about the three principles which govern the parliamentary form of government. Okay. Three principles. Okay. So I told you ministers has to answer. Ministers has to answer for the questions raised by the MPs. Now, if MPs are asking questions in the parliament, we need to ensure that ministers are present in the parliament to answer their questions, right? See, for example, you have doubts in polity, you are asking question, I must be there to answer. So we should come together in a session, same session, then only the interaction can happen. Likewise, in order to ensure the ministers are always present in the parliament when MPs are asking question, the members of the government should always be members of the legislature. So it is applicable both parliament as well as the state legislative assembly. Okay. So who are the members of the government? The ministers. The other name for ministers is members of the government. So when the ministers are members of the legislature, they have to be present in the parliamentary session whenever the session is taking place. So it is easy for MPs to ask questions, the ministers will answer. Okay, so from this area only, this year one question has been asked in the prelims examination. What was that question? Telling that, can a person be a minister without being a member of the parliament for 6 months? Yes. Okay, so normally always ministers should be from the parliament only. As an exemption, 6 months a person can be a minister without being an MP, but within 6 months they have to get elected to be the minister. Okay, so only a person eligible to get elected as a member of parliament can be appointed as a minister. That is the logic. Okay, so they've asked those who are eligible to vote, can they become the minister? Okay, so according to Article 18, according to Representation of People Act, those who have crossed the age of 18 can vote. But in order to become an MP, you have to cross 25 years of age. Okay, so that is why the statement is wrong. The statement was wrong. Okay, let's come back. But normally, the members of the government should always be members of the legislature. The exception is 6 months. Second is, we want to ensure the MPs are giving the correct answer, right? Okay. Sorry, ministers are giving the correct answer. We don't want the ministers to bluff or hide the facts. So there must be some check, some mechanism to ensure ministers are giving correct answers. What would be that mechanism? Okay. The mechanism is the tenure of the government is dependent on Lok Sabha or the lower house. Okay. The tenure of the government is dependent on the Lok Sabha. Now, if the ministers are giving wrong answers or if they're trying to hide the facts, the MPs can pass a no confidence motion. Okay, they can pass a no confidence motion. Telling that we are not confident with this government because this government is lying. So they may be doing something wrong. So we are removing this government. So when a no confidence motion is passed by majority of the MPs, the government has to go. So by logic, the government has to give correct answer. It should not hide any facts. Government has to explain things in a proper manner. Okay, fine. So that is the second principle. Third principle is that the tenure of the Lok Sabha is dependent on the government, or I should say executive. When I say executive, it is the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. Okay, the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. Now, if our Prime Minister thinks that, okay, the Lok Sabha is not supporting me, so let me dissolve the Lok Sabha, he can ask the President to dissolve the Lok Sabha. The President have to dissolve the Lok Sabha, even before the tenure is over. Even before the tenure is over, the Lok Sabha shall be dissolved. And if Lok Sabha is dissolved, the government also should go. The Prime Minister and Council of Ministers also should resign. They'll go for fresh elections. Based on the fresh election result, once again, the Prime Minister can take back the oath or become a Prime Minister again. Okay. So we have seen this in the recent times. Okay, in 2019, that is the last year, Telangana Chief Minister, he recommended to the governor to dissolve the State Legislative Assembly. See, Telangana's State Legislative Assembly was about to take place along with the national general election. So now the Chief Minister did not want that to happen. So in 4.5 years, 6 months before the regular tenure is over, he asked the governor to dissolve the State Legislative Assembly. State Legislative Assembly was dissolved, elections occurred, he got more number of seats again and then become the Chief Minister again. Okay. And why this mechanism? Okay, we know that the Prime Minister can remove the Lok Sabha, yes. But why this mechanism? Because you have to follow a principle called as rule of law. Rule of law. Rule of law is opposite to rule of men. Rule of law is opposite to rule of men. So what do you mean by rule of men? So if there is no law, no parliament, there is a king and he decides everything in the country, then that is called as rule of men, one person. But when one person is ruling, there is a chance for arbitrariness. Okay, one person may favor one particular section over the other. There won't be any control at all. The one person may rule with their own whimsies and fancies, they'll say. Okay, according to their own wish, they'll rule. So if there should be some predictability, some kind of order, there must be law created first. Based on law, only administration should be carried out. See, for example, the Prime Minister could have directly said farmers can sell their produce directly to the corporates, or they need not sell it only in the agriculture produce marketing committee. They can also have individual contracts to sell. Okay, and in case if there is non-adherence to the contract, for example, if the corporate company is saying I'll buy the products and suddenly they leave the products, they say that the product is of not good quality, so we are not picking it up. We will buy it only when you give it at a lesser price. Like that, if corporates are threatening, then also there is a measure to protect. Now I'm just telling two important provisions. Okay, there are many other provisions that has been brought by the Farmers Act recently. Now, why the Prime Minister could have directly given an order, right? But he has to go to the Parliament, Lok Sabha, Raj Sabha, they have to pass a law. After passing the law only, government is issuing orders. For example, today is relevant. Okay, that is yesterday, the central government had issued a notification that retail traders, okay, they can keep a stock of only 2 ton, okay, of onion if their wholesalers 25 ton. Okay, hoarding should not be done. So in times of crisis, government can do this. It is one of the points that is given in the farmers bill. Okay, normal times the corporates can buy how much ever they want, traders can buy how much ever they want and store it in the cold house or storing place. Okay, but in times of crisis like war or emergency or inflation, government reserved the right to issue an order and say this is the limit of goods that you can buy. Otherwise, people will hoard the onions and onions price would skyrocket. Okay, hoarding means they will keep it secretly to allow the onion prices to further escalate, and then they will sell it in the market to get a higher profit. So to prevent that, government has given a notification. Now that notification they are giving because law is already approved. Parliament in that law has given the power to the union government to notify, okay, what is the quantity of onion that should be procured, or quantity of agriculture produce that should be kept with their retailers and traders. Okay. So now any decision that is taken, any action done by the government, it should have a basis of law. Very simple. That is the rule of law. I'll repeat in simple words. Any action of the executive, prime minister, an IAS officer, or anybody in the government should have the basis of law. Law should have already allowed to do that. It should have given the power. Then only they can exercise the power. Okay. If there is no law, they have to first ensure law is created. From that law, they have to derive powers and implement. That is called as rule of law. So this is to safeguard the citizens. Okay. So law is created by a bigger body, parliament. All MPs come together and they create law. So if there is something negative about the law, they can discuss in the parliament. Okay. And then cut down the wrong things. You don't ask me, sir, whether debate is taking place in the parliament in the recent times. That is a criticism. But what is the expectation is the law should be discussed with all the people, including the opposition MPs, and you have to create the law. And based on that, the government has to implement its power. Okay, let us assume this situation. The prime minister is facing suddenly a big problem. Okay, for example, corona crisis has come, and to address this corona crisis, he has to take a lot of measures. He's suddenly seeing that the healthcare providers like doctors and nurses are attacked. They are not allowed in the houses. Like if their tenants know, the owners are asking to vacate them from the premises. So this was initially happened. Now it is okay, but initial months and all, it was a problem. So now the prime minister wanted to order the police to arrest such people who are creating trouble for the health workers, but the law did not allow for it. The Epidemics Act, which was already there, it does not have a provision, okay, to punish people who are disturbing the healthcare providers, doctors and nurses. So now immediately they went for an ordinance. What is an ordinance? I'll tell you later. The prime minister wanted to create a law, okay, and amend the Epidemics Act to say anybody who's creating trouble to the doctors and nurses, healthcare providers, shall be subjected to punishment. Okay, so to even give punishment, to even act against those who are problematic to society, you have to look for law. If law permits, then only you can take action. Okay, so that is why the prime minister first issued ordinance. Later, he got approval from the parliament. Okay, fine. So if you are thinking what is ordinance, wait, I'll explain. Okay, don't worry. Now, the point is, prime minister needs a law to implement any new or face any new and emergent situations. Let us assume prime minister is going to the parliament and Lok Sabha is saying, no, I will not give you the law. Rajya Sabha, usually the government may not have the majority, but Lok Sabha, the government has majority. But what if Lok Sabha itself is not supporting the prime minister? Okay, and just imagine the MPs have become corrupt, and they are demanding money. Okay, so now what the prime minister can do is he can dissolve the Lok Sabha. Okay, he can dissolve the Lok Sabha, and he can go to the people and in the election say, I'm ensuring that new candidates are standing. The old people are changed. So please vote for them and give me a higher mandate. Give me more MPs. When you give more MPs, I'll be able to effectively administer, because whenever I want law, this Lok Sabha will create a law for me. Okay, so the prime minister wants Lok Sabha to create law whenever it wants. Rajya Sabha also. Parliament has to cooperate with the prime minister. If parliament is refusing to cooperate with the prime minister, what will happen? The government hands will be tied. The government cannot work at all. Okay, so if the government wants to act smoothly, we need a parliament which passes a law when and where the government is asking. Of course, there should be debate, but after the debate, duly the bills has to be passed and made law so that the government can smoothly function. Okay. Now, the present time, people are criticizing the government is not giving adequate time for debate in parliament. Okay, but why the government has to go for it is because the opposition is disrupting. The opposition never allows for a law to be passed. Okay, so the government feels that it is better to pass law because administration things has to be carried out, and that too during emergency. Okay, the reforms that is required for the economy, you have to push things faster. Okay, so I'm not justifying. I'm telling you why it is happening. Okay, I'm just giving you the reason. That's all. Okay, I myself is against cutting down the debate in parliament, and that is not good for democracy. Okay. Now, what is happening is the second and third principle is there to ensure there is cooperation between executive and legislature. The second provision ensures that the ministers are cooperating by giving correct answer. The third provision ensures Lok Sabha is passing the law whenever the Prime Minister wants. Prime Minister and his Council of Ministers wants. Okay. Now, the second and third provision will not happen in reality, or it's a rarity. It's a rarity. The Lok Sabha can remove the government, but Lok Sabha will not remove the government. Why? If Lok Sabha is removing the government, they have to try to find another government, or Lok Sabha itself will be dissolved and they have to meet the fresh elections. Okay. For example, when Miss Jayalalitha died, okay, they thought ADMK would be split, but they created a leader from second line leadership. The present chief minister, now he's a first line leader. He has got some public acceptance as well as acceptance within the party, more support. But initially, he was a second line leader. He was never expected to be the chief minister. There were many other persons who were expected to become the chief minister, more experienced than him. Okay, but how come the seniors and other MLAs stuck to a newcomer? Because if they voted no confidence motion, okay, and if they voted out Chief Minister Edapadi Panichami out of power, they should have found another leader. Another leader is a difficulty. If that does not happen, they have to meet the fresh elections. 2016, when Jayalalitha was there, she was face of the ADMK party, so they got more votes. So the MLAs were not sure, okay, and that too, the way the chief minister was treated in Apollo Hospital, there was no transparency. People were angry with the that time MPs and MLAs and ministers. Okay, so now definitely they would have lost the election if they have not supported this second line leader. So they're almost going to complete the 5-year tenure. Okay, so another 6 months they're going to complete the 5-year tenure successfully. That is because normally the lower house will not vote out the government out. They will not pass the no confidence motion. If they do so, it is like keeping a check on themselves. It's like firing on their own foot. It's a political failure on them. Okay, so they will not do it. Likewise, the prime minister also will not remove the Lok Sabha. You know how the elections are fought, right? So much of crores of money is spent, energy is spent. Okay, so our prime minister, after all the campaign, he went to a Himalayas and sat inside the cave to take rest. Such a tiring campaign. Okay, for all MPs. Now, will the prime minister again dissolve the Lok Sabha and go for a fresh election with 5 years tenure? So they will try to complete the 5-year tenure. Okay, whatever that should be done, they'll be trying to complete the 5-year tenure. Okay, so even though the Lok Sabha can be dissolved by the executive will not do it. Okay, so they will not fight. So now listen, when there are two institutions, when they cannot fight, when they cannot go for conflict, because if they conflict, both will die, both will exit, both will lose power. So automatically what happens? There is a compulsion for them to cooperate. Very important. They're saying openly, you can conflict, you can destroy another institution. But if you destroy another institution, you yourself will get destroyed. So conflict is not permitted. If conflict is not there, the only possible relationship between the two institutions is cooperation. And just like marriage, right? Just imagine, no? So the husband and wife, they can conflict, they can fight with each other. But if they're fighting with each other, both will be at loss. So there is no scope for conflict. Okay, they are compelled to cooperate. No other go, you have to cooperate. Like that only we have two institutions, they cannot go for conflict. To go for conflict, both will exist. Both will exit, both will go. So they cooperate. So now we can define the parliamentary form of government. Parliamentary form of government can be defined as interdependence and coordination between executive and legislature. Interdependence and coordination between executive and legislature. So this is the definition of parliamentary form of government. Okay, so see, why we are saying interdependent? Because the tenure of government is dependent on Lok Sabha, Lok Sabha is dependent on government. Okay, so since they cannot conflict, they have to cooperate. So that is what the definition. So definition of parliamentary form of government is there shall be interdependence and coordination between executive and legislature. If you take presidential form, okay, presidential form, instead of coordination, okay, they will say separation of power. Presidential form is defined as separation of powers between executive and legislature. Separation of powers between executive and legislature. Separation of powers, it's not coordination. Okay, so that is why we are finding now always Trump and the lower house in USA will be fighting. Trump belongs to Republican Party. The House of Representatives, that is lower house in USA, is dominated by the Democrats. In fact, the speaker is called as Nancy Pelosi. Okay, they've tried to impeach the president itself last year. Okay, so they're starting from last year. The impeachment of Corona saved Trump. Okay, when Corona killed many, Corona saved Trump. That people and the government thought that they have to go slow in the impeachment, because impeachment process means then you have conduct presidential election. The president's hands will be tied. We need a strong government, an active government. Okay, so Corona is killing people, saving governments across the world. Okay, fine. So that's a comment, just my comment, personal comment. Okay, fine. Now let us see the difference, okay, between the presidential form of government and the prime minister form of government. Parliament form of government and then presidential form of government. Okay, now I will have to dot diagram. Okay, so in parliamentary form of government, people will be voting for Lok Sabha. Okay, we will elect members for Lok Sabha. Okay, and we elect members for state legislative assembly. Okay, so state level lower house we will vote, for parliament also we will vote. From state legislative assembly, Rajya Sabha will be elected. Rajya Sabha will be elected. From Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, okay, we will be having the Council of Ministers. We have the Council of Ministers. Okay, So we have the Council of Ministers. Now, how the government is formed? Okay, in Lok Sabha, BJP is having the majority. So the government is also formed by the same political party. So now if government wants to pass a law, it can easily pass law in Lok Sabha. Cakewalk, it's a cakewalk. Okay. Nobody's going to oppose because majority of the MPs here is BJP, they'll say okay. In Rajya Sabha also, okay, if you are able to convince few parties, the government can pass a law in Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha will be the only hurdle. In case of parliamentary form of government, only hurdle is Rajya Sabha. And in Indian constitution, there is a scope. If Lok Sabha is agreeing something and Rajya Sabha is saying no for the law, can go for joint sitting. Joint sitting. SITTING, joint sitting. Okay. So, which means Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha will sit together. Lok Sabha has a strength of 545. Rajya Sabha has a strength of 245. So, if Rajya Sabha says no also, you can go for a joint sitting and once again repeat the voting process. So, Lok Sabhas will prevail just because they have huge numbers, no? 545 people. Okay, some 300 plus government itself will have 273 MPs. So, even if entire Rajya Sabha, okay, or I say majority of them in Rajya Sabha is voting against government, okay, minimum 273 will be there. So at least 350 they will have. Some support in Rajya Sabha will also have. So most of the times, Lok Sabhas will prevail. Most of the time, Lok Sabhas will prevail. Okay, Lok Sabhas will prevail. So we have parliament, joint sitting. Or other thing is the government also go for ordinance route. Okay, ordinance route. Okay, what is ordinance? If the parliament is not session, if Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, they are not in session, government itself can create law. Government itself can create law. So in short, law created by executive is ordinance. Law created by government is ordinance. Emergency law. Okay, instead of waiting for Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, the government itself can. As I told you, during the epidemics, okay, the amendment to Epidemics Act was passed as an ordinance. Okay, but the right to create law is with the legislature, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So if ordinance is created within 6 months, okay, or there is a time period, okay, so let's now just say within a set time period, they have to get permission, approval from the both the houses. Then only the ordinance will continue. Otherwise, the ordinance will die. So if the Prime Minister feels that a particular law is required and even opposition will support, he can bring in the ordinance easily. Then compel, because he has brought it, it may influence the MPs to give agreement. So totally what I'm trying to communicate is, in parliamentary form of governments, it is relatively easy to pass law. I'm not saying it is very easy. It is relatively easy to pass law in case of parliament. Okay, because you are electing members of Lok Sabha, from Lok Sabha directly Council of Ministers. So the political party which is running the government is also having majority in Lok Sabha. So it's going to be easy to pass law. But imagine the presidential form of government. Presidential form of government, okay, they elect members directly to the president office. There is a separate election for the House of Representatives. The Lok Sabha or the lower house in US is called as House of Representatives. Okay, so for this house, direct election, and Senate also separate election. So people get to choose their people independently. The chance where the president is also belonging to Republican Party, House of Representatives as well as Senate, all of them dominated by the same party, the chance is 1/3. See, in case of India, the probability of the ruling party is having majority in Rajya Sabha is 1/2. Okay, so half the time. So probability is more. Okay, but in case of presidential form, where all the institutions are dominated by the same political party, the probability is very less only. Okay, you may say it is 1/3. I will say it is less than 1/3. How? President no has 4-year tenure, so once in 4 years. House of Representatives will be changed once in 2 years. So even that is why American system no they appreciate the system, because even if all three institutions are dominated by one party, only 2 years they can rule the roost. They can do whatever they want, easily pass law in both the houses, and do rule according to their wishes. But people will understand that this is too arbitrary, or arbitrary means unreasonable, or this is too excessive. So in the elections that is happening once in 2 years, they will change the political party. They'll vote completely opposite. And US people is credited to have managed that always. If the presidency is with one political party, the House of Representatives, they elect another party. Okay. So it was Donald Trump after long years only, luckily in his first 2-year tenure, he got a majority in all the institutions, President, House of Representatives, as well as Senate. That is why, he was able to do a lot of things. Okay. Even there was strong opposition within the American community, still he was able to do that. But now it is very difficult for him, because after 2 years of his presidential tenure, people thought Trump is exceeding his limits. So they elected a Democratic representatives. They ensured House of Representatives is having the majority of Democrats. So now the president is under check. He cannot act as he wishes. So now if the president has to pass a law, he has to discuss with the opposition party. The president has to discuss with opposition party. So Republican Party and Democratic Party, only if both are willing, a law will come. But in case of India, if ruling party thinks it can pass the law. Okay. So I would say in presidential form of government, we have a bipartisan law. In presidential form of government, we get bipartisan. Now you may think bipartisan means it is opposed. No, bipartisan means a law which is having support from both political parties. Okay, a law which is getting support from both political parties. Okay, bipartisan law. Okay, bipartisanship. Okay, bipartisanship. So both support. Mostly in USA, most of the decisions will be taken bipartisan. Now Donald Trump is criticized because he's not negotiating at all. He never goes to the Democratic Party. Okay, but usually the presidents has a convention that they consult the opposition party in order to arrive at a decision. Okay, so now comparatively, okay, if you see, yes. What is the difference, exact difference between parliamentary form and okay, so what shall be the difference? First is easy to make law in parliamentary form. Presidential form is relatively difficult to create law. Or the process will be slow process. In case of parliament, it is a quick process. It is a quick process. Now you tell me in which system the law may be bad. I'm not saying, always bad, but where the chances of law can be bad or one-sided. Good, I'm getting answers. Thank you. Parliamentary form, very good. Parliamentary form. Okay. In parliamentary form, the decisions may be wrong because ruling party itself can decide. Okay. So chances of arbitrary law. In polity, you'll be using the word arbitrary quite often. The meaning of the word arbitrary is unreasonable. unreasonable law. Then in case of presidential form, more chances of rational law. So instead of using the word good and bad, okay, so for bad law, we can use arbitrary law. For good law, we can use the word rational law. Okay, see the wordings and all, no, I'm using more chances relatively. Okay, because we cannot exactly divide the governments, into water type compartments. Exactly, we cannot say parliament is, say there are some arrangements that is made, okay, for easiness. Okay, done. So this is the main difference between parliament and the presidential. As I told you already, in case of definition, separation of powers. Here, in case of parliamentary form, okay, no strict separation of powers. Last year mains question. In Indian Constitution, we do not have strict separation of powers. People did not agree, but we don't have strict separation of powers. Why we don't have strict separation of powers is because executive and coordination. Okay, the executive and legislature is coordinating. Okay, separation of power. Okay, fine. Now let us assume that you become an IAS officer, you work for the government of India for 30 years, okay, and now you are expert in the field of polity. So suddenly a new country is created outside India somewhere. So that country is requesting India to write a constitution for it, and you are appointed as the drafts person of that constitution for a new country. Okay, not for India, for a new country. Which system do you think is best for a new country, for any country for that matter? Okay, what is your opinion? Very good. Okay, so here people are asking contextual question. Okay, telling, sir, on what basis the country is formed? We will choose the government accordingly. Good, you are smart. But if everything remains normal, no special circumstances, and you have to set up a new government, what form of government you will suggest? Parliamentary form or presidential form? You should answer from the differences that we have seen. Okay, so many are saying parliament because I think you guys all love parliamentary form of government. Good. Presidential form. Okay, presidential form of government is said to be a good form of government across the world. Then why we have to choose parliamentary form? Okay, so we know the definition of parliamentary form. Okay, but we must know the reasons why we have selected the parliamentary form. Okay. First one is familiarity, of course. Familiarity with the system. Like now we are familiar with the parliamentary democracy, so you are suggesting parliamentary democracy for all the countries. Okay, so familiar. We also, before independence itself, the British administration was a parliamentary form of government only. Okay, it evolved as a parliamentary form. So familiarity, we know how the working of the system is. Okay, familiarity of the system. Second is there is a specific reason the newly independent India wanted a strong, stable, prompt, and responsible government. strong, stable, prompt, and responsible government. Okay, I'll explain. Why strong, stable, and prompt and responsible government? A chaotic situation, or I should say, there was separative tendencies, separative tendencies, and communalism. Communal riots. And remember, India has to be built. Okay, nation building, state building has to be done. Nation building and state building has to be done, because nation building means many people are giving loyalty to their princely states. Many people were more affin or more fixed towards their language identity than their national identity. Okay, so the idea that they were belonging to India was not prevalent with all. Okay, so they had a common enemy. Common enemy is out now. The feeling of one nation, or the opposite tendencies. A group of people looked, for example, South Indians looked North Indians with suspicion. North Indians looked South Indians with degeneration. Northeast people was not included. So all of them should be built as one country. Okay, so a lot of work is there. State building means executive, legislative, judiciary. You have to build them. You have to bring laws. You have to create institutions, make them capable of delivering. Okay, so national building and state building has to be done. For this, we need a strong, stable, prompt, responsible government. What is this strong government? Strong government is one which is able to take bold decisions despite of opposition. Bold decisions despite of opposition. See, farmers bill, we should debate whether it is good for farmers or not. Okay, but ultimately, I would say that it is a good, or I would say it's a bold decision despite of opposition. Opposition parties having creating trouble, farmers are creating trouble. Okay, but there is a pandemic situation, but government has go ahead and have brought in this decision. Demonetization, GST. Okay, so you can give a lot of examples for bold decision. A strong government, despite of people's opposition, should be able to take decision. Okay, which government will be very strong government? Whenever it requires, it can easily pass law. The government which can pass law easily is a strong government, relatively strong government. If the government is not able to pass law, it will be a weak government. Let me talk about UPA. Okay, so NDA government is able to do a lot of things, but Manmohan Singh government relatively, okay, some bold decisions they were not able to take. But remember, it is Manmohan Singh who brought all these reforms. Okay, so whether it's GST or the present reforms, this farmers bill and all, where the starting point is 1991 when Manmohan Singh was the finance minister. He only unleashed this neoliberal policies. Okay, then when he became the prime minister, he was not able to implement these things because the government is a coalition government. So every time they have to negotiate with multiple political parties. So to make law, it took a lot of time for them. To build consensus, it take a lot of time for them. So they delayed, okay, in bringing certain economic reforms. But now this government is able to do things faster because they have good majority. They can easily pass law. So a strong government is one which can easily pass law. Okay, a strong government is one which can easily pass law and take bold decisions despite of opposition. Okay, because people always may not know what is good for them. Okay, 1991 when the government took a bold decision to adopt capitalism, Manmohan Singh was seen as a devil. Narasimha Rao also was seen as anti-people. They was criticized heavily. Okay, but the introduction of this new reforms brought substantial changes in the lives of people. Then stable government. The government has to remain for 5 years continuously. The government has to remain for 5 years continuously. And what is a prompt government? A prompt government is a quick government. A prompt government is a quick government, which means they can act quickly, not slowly, and responsible. A government which can be answerable to the MPs. So if you see, the parliamentary form of government satisfies all these conditions: strong, stable, prompt, and reasonable. Okay. But if you see the presidential form, okay, it will give stability. Okay, it may give stability, and it may also give the responsible government. But strong and prompt government can be given by the parliamentary form only. So parliamentary form can be a fusion of all four. Okay, but in case of presidential form, it need not be the fusion of all. Okay, we can have a we can have a stable and responsible government in presidential form, but not a strong and prompt government. Got the point? Okay. So in order to suppress the separative tendencies and communal riots, in order to carry out the nation building exercise, we needed a strong central government which can take strong and prompt decisions. That is why we adopted parliamentary form of government. That is the reason for adoption of parliamentary form of government. Okay. Now I told you the reason. Now 70 years is gone. Should we adopt presidential form? In 1 year, they asked a question in the general studies paper. Should we adopt presidential form? That is the main question. Should we adopt presidential form of government? Okay, so there are arguments for why this presidential form should be adopted, because it has proper checks and balances. In parliamentary form of government, arbitrary laws are possible. Okay, parliamentary forms has a tendency to become dictatorship of the ruling party. Parliamentary form of government can be a dictatorship of ruling party or tyranny of majority. Okay, rule of majority. If you have enough numbers, you can say whatever you want in the country. Okay, so that happens. So we had a historical instance in our country. Indira Gandhi's government, okay, she was able to be almost a dictator is because of parliamentary form of democracy. She had huge numbers in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, so she was even changing the constitution substantially. Okay. So we have already witnessed one dictatorship. Another dictatorship is in the making. Okay, we are witnessing it. This is just my opinion. The second point. Okay, don't mention it in the paper. You will be screwed. Okay, fine. So now you have to write that there is a tendency for the ruling party to become a dictator. Okay, dictatorship is possible. Okay, and democracy may be curtailed because of parliamentary form of democracy. Okay, so these are the reasons why they are saying we have to shift to presidential form of government. And one more point also. Usually the election is happening, that is happening in the name of the leaders only. So people vote for a person rather than political party. That things have changed. Okay, so in 2004 it was Sonia Gandhi versus Advani. Okay, because Vajpayee was almost not there. Then in 2014, it was Modi versus Rahul Gandhi. Okay, in states also, if you find, no, the chief minister candidate is very important. Okay, so because people vote based on who may become the chief minister. So when people vote for one person, it's actually, we are virtually a presidential form. Okay, meaning people directly want to elect their head of the government. And in the present system, no, parliamentary form, when you are electing your representatives and that representatives elect the prime minister, it has a problem. Supposing you want Prime Minister Modi to be your next prime minister also, 2024. But the BJP candidate of your constituency, he's a rogue. You know him personally. He is involved in some corrupt activity. Okay, so now you don't want to vote for that person, but you want to vote for Prime Minister Modi. We have a dilemma, right? I have faced this dilemma in 2019 election. Okay, I did not like the uh, person who stands in a political party. Okay, but I wanted that political party to win. Okay, so now there is a dilemma. Okay, so where you will vote, ultimately you will think of the prime minister candidate and then only you will make a vote. Okay, so what happens, you will be ending up electing a good leader but a bad representative. This problem is there in parliamentary democracy. Okay, so this is a strong reason why they are saying we have to shift to presidential form of government. So in the presidential form of government, we elect president separately and the prime minister separately. Okay, or I'm sorry, we elect the president separately, the members of the lower house is elected separately, members of the upper house is also elected separately. Okay, so then you have to substantiate. Okay, so why we should adopt. Okay, now before that, uh, what should be the structure of the answer? Already I've discussed the structure of the answer. Okay, can anybody tell me what will be? Please click on the hand raise button and tell me. See, we are building a foundation. Okay, we are building a foundation. Those who have attended if you have you seen the question paper? Okay, let me first complete the structure and come back to the question paper part. Yes, Shivapriya, you can unmute and speak.
Sir, first we have to hit the core demand of the question. We have to hit the core demand of the question.
Oh yeah, what is the core demand?
Here, whether we are going to support presidential form of government or the parliamentary form of government. So I have to define my stand first.
But yeah, I understand. But it will be very raw, right? You have to go for some introduction, right? So it is always better to give a short introduction. Nothing but definition of keywords.
Okay, sir.
Polity. Okay, so this will give you an introduction, nice introduction. Keep the introduction 2-3 lines. Okay, then second, context of the question. Immediately, how to address the core demand. First, define the keywords. Then, context of the question. You have to speak. Context means why the question is arised. And then you take the stand. Now, they address the core demand. Right away, hit the question. Okay, so all three is addressing the core demand only. But before taking a stand, plainly saying that I support for parliamentary form, we don't need to adopt the presidential form of government. Okay, we have to take a stand.
Okay, sir.
And remember this context also, you have to put it in 2-3 lines. That's all. Okay, because if you're delaying to take stand, the examiner may think that you're beating around the bush. Okay, so you should be taking the stand. Okay, so what shall be the stand? Parliamentary form. Okay, parliamentary form should be retained. Okay, so I told you to stick to the same the settled questions and all, no, in polity, like we are a secular government, federal government and all. Okay, don't write critically. You agree with that what the constitution says. Okay.
Should agree with the constitution, sir.
Yeah, we are following parliamentary form of democracy, so we say parliamentary form should retain.
Okay, sir.
Okay, Then you substantiate the stand. Substantiate. Here we are substantiating the stand. This would be the major part. Okay, so after within a 2 paragraphs, the third paragraph you have to start substantiating. Then and finally, then you have to conclude. Okay, conclusion part. Just combine everything and give a conclusion. Okay, so we already discussed this, right? I hope you remember.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So my doubt is, even though question ask for critically examine or comment also, then also you have to support the constitution, or you can provide our views, sir.
No, that is key words they ask. Now the direct opinion based question. No? Do you think, the question is, do you think should we adopt? Okay, so if they ask critically examine, okay, that whether we should a presidential form is the best form of government, that is completely different. That is where you have to criticize completely presidential form.
Okay, sir.
Okay, and with some small corrections. Okay, this points will be for direct questions, like discuss questions, discuss questions, explain question, or if they're asking a directly opinion based question, you will be thinking of a format. Because critical means you criticize. If you say examine, you will write positive, negative, and then give conclusion. So those structures are easy. Okay, that is what they'll concentrate in the mains dispatch also, right? So these are the common structures. When I give, this is the general structure. When you prepare in this thing, no, when a direct question is asked, you can use the same format, and then key question words are used. You can change it and use it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, when we come to the other points that are lengthiest written constitution and all, no, I will tell you how to analyze when the word analyze coming, when the examine is coming, how to do that. For that, with example, I will tell you.
Okay, sir. Sir,
So,
on general doubt I have, sir.
yeah, this is
Uh,
general method. Discussion is the keyword. If they're asking a question about discussion, discuss presidential form and parliamentary form differences, like that they ask, or they ask opinion-based questions. Do you think, okay, that this system should change? For that kind of question, relevance-based question and all. They ask whether parliamentary form of democracy is relevant in the present times. Okay, relevance. If the question word is relevance, then also the structure is suitable.
okay, sir. Sir, on general doubt, sir, for these topics, which book we have to refer, sir? Because Lakshmikant doesn't give this much information, I guess.
That's why
So,
there are 5, 6 books.
yeah, NCRTs you told, no, sir. I guess Indian Constitution at Work. That book or some other book, sir?
That is enough. Listen to my class and add these points there. That's all. Then regular newspaper reading, you yourself will be adding 1 or 2 points extra.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. That's
Usually,
it.
usually quality-based questions in mains examination, they'll ask based on current affairs only mains examination. Okay, out of 5, 6 questions, at least 80%, 4 questions will be from current affairs. Only 2 is conventional based. Okay, so already when you read the current affairs, you will have enough points. Don't worry. Don't
Okay.
worry about the content now. Now worry about your presentation and the structuring of the answers. How to read, how to remember, how to present.
Okay, sir.
Okay,
Okay.
content will automatically come. Content will, and I'll tell you, I have referred 5 to 6 books. Okay, and then just a minute.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes. What was your question?
Content you are telling about the content, sir, of the answer.
I have read and I prepared this entire content from 6 books. Okay, I am making the job easier for you. So you refer one book. I would suggest institute material plus my class lecture enough. And psychologically, if you feel that, I sir, everybody studying Lakshmikant, I also want to study Lakshmikant. Okay, Lakshmikant one book and my class notes.
Okay, sir.
So whatever additional points I'm giving, just add on to it and read it.
Yes, sir.
I
Yes,
you know I know Lakshmikant is not enough for the mains examination. So that is why we are taking the effort to reduce your time, because you are studying for polity itself. 6 books means when will you finish the syllabus? It's difficult. Okay, so that is why we do it for you. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So that is why I was coming to the question paper part also. Those who have attended my class, just my class, if they have taken the 2020 question paper, out of 15 quality questions they asked, okay, you will be able to manage at least 5-6 questions. If you have read once from preamble to president, as I told you in the first class, they would have answered 10 questions. This time quality questions is easy and it can be directly answered. And every year you can handle the mains question as well as prelims question just by reading Lakshmikant once and listening to the class, adding the points from my class. So get oriented. That is why, I create foundation, okay, to make you think yourself and write the answers. I don't want you to rely on the materials always. Okay, I'm trying, it's like I'm not trying to catch fish and give it to you. I'm trying to make you a catcher of fish. Fend for yourself. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
So initially, my 2-3 classes, there was a big feedback for me telling that sir is very slow and he's going so in detail. The reason is we have to cover all the things for the examination and make you equipped to deal with polity. I want to make polity a easier subject for you. Okay, done. So this is the structure. So now I told you know how to substantiate the stand. Okay, so this is where should we adopt the presidential form? Okay, no, we should not be adopting the presidential form because parliamentary form has worked out well. Efficient working. Okay, efficient working so far. Okay, of parliamentary form. Now, what was the reason we saw earlier that why we adopted parliamentary form of government? Because we required a strong, stable, prompt government like that. Strong, stable, prompt, and responsible government, right? We saw that we required it. No, we need a government to suppress the communal riots, separative tendencies, and nation building process. Now, whether the situation has changed after 70 years, even now, Jammu and Kashmir there is problem, Northeast there is problem, Nagaland there is problem. Okay, and also we are finding that many small areas is asking for a separate country, and communal riots are peaking. So, considering all these situations, even now we need a strong and a prompt government. Okay, strong and a prompt government. And India is a multicultural society. See, one point, diversity of India is the answer for most polity questions. Okay, can straight away start diversity as the first point. Anything in polity, good thing or bad thing, diversity is the reason. So India is a diverse country. A diverse country, you cannot wait to build consensus. Can't wait to build consensus. In USA, only 2 political parties, major political parties, and they are also thinking of one and the same only. They do not differ heavily. Okay, so you can't wait to build consensus. Okay, so what is the meaning of it? If there are multiple political parties, multiple groups, you go and negotiate everybody to before creating a law, it will be very difficult. So in a country like India, we should give power to one person who can finally decide, okay, this is good for all people. Let's go ahead. Okay, so in a diverse society, we cannot have a presidential form. Parliamentary form is best suited. Okay, and it continues to be a responsible government, right? Parliamentary form of government, you can ask question, even though the government is strong. Okay, so every time in parliament, you can ask the government to answer. And parliamentary form of government is declared as basic structure doctrine by the judiciary. What is basic structure doctrine? I'll tell later, but this is a point. So we cannot change the parliamentary form of government. And there is a commission, okay, National Commission for Review of Working of Constitution. National Commission for Review of the Constitution, the working. Okay, so that is Venkatachalaya Committee, commission with under the chairmanship of Venkatachalaya. It has said that parliamentary form of government has worked well for India. No need to change it to presidential, because one of the questions put them to is in the year 2000 whether we should adopt the presidential form of government. He has clearly mentioned that parliamentary form is working well for the country. Okay, fine. So even though there is a chance for an arbitrary law, we'll hope for the government is elected. We'll hope good people are elected. So for 5 years, they will act responsibly by themselves. Okay. And the suggestion was increase the effectiveness of parliament. In parliamentary form of democracy, only if opposition is not there, parliament is not functioning properly, then the government will become dictatorship. Otherwise, parliamentary form of democracy will be a better democracy. So for as a solution, what you should say that opposition and parliament will become effective. Okay, any doubts? Any doubts? Okay, so here is one question they're asking, sir. President of Trump is taking a lot of decisions now, sir. How it is possible? See, when the president of USA takes decision, should be approved by the Senate. Now, Senate is also backing up the Trump. That is the reason why Trump is able to make a lot of individual decision. It makes it appear as an individual decision. In USA, all critical decisions should be approved by the Senate. Okay, so he's breaching the structures, like he's like a random guy. Okay, so does not follow the rule of law, existing conventions and all. Okay, he rules by his own whims and fancies. Okay, yeah, don't try to understand the US presidential system by Donald Trump. You can't. Okay, because he works outside the system. Okay, yes, so somebody has a hand raised. Okay, yes, Shivpriya. Okay, I'm sorry, 366.
Sorry, sir. I asked my question earlier itself. I guess they didn't lower my hand. I will lower my hand. Sorry, sir.
Okay, fine. So presidential form of government is over. Okay, so we have done with it. Okay, so now let us discuss the new topic: integrated and independent judiciary. Integrated and independent judiciary. Okay, so what do we mean by this integrated and independent? Exactly 5 minutes, then I'll come back. Okay, then we shall discuss the meaning of integrated and independent judiciary. Exactly 5 minutes, so please come back within 5 minutes. Yes, we can start. Any questions you can ask? No questions. So let's start. Let's start. An integrated and independent judiciary. See, they're asking in what we should write the context. Context means in which or what is the reason they're asking the question. Why they're asking that whether we have to adopt the presidential form. What is the reason? Okay, so in the context, you have to say 70 years is gone and people vote for one candidate, and there is a conflict between the prime minister candidate and the representative to whom to choose, and more importantly, the parliamentary form of government, there is a chance that laws may be arbitrary. Okay, so these are the context of the question. Integrated and independent judiciary. What do you mean by integrated judiciary? See, let me dot diagram. We have union government and state government. In executive, we have union government and state government. Okay. Then, in case of legislature, we have parliament and the state legislative assembly. Okay. In judiciary, we have Supreme Court and the High Court. Okay, Supreme Court and the High Court. Now, the relationship between Supreme Court and High Court is hierarchical. See here, in case of executive and legislature, I'm drawing a parallel line between the two institutions, right? The executive and the parliament. But here I'm drawing a horizontal line, meaning High Court is subordinate to the Supreme Court. Okay. And there is no autonomy, or I should say, whatever decision taken by the High Court can be appealed to the Supreme Court. Decision from the High Court can be appealed to the Supreme Court. Okay. So in USA, we have a situation where the executive and the legislature, as well as the judiciary, is federal. But in India's case, judiciary is not federal. Okay, so when we say integrated judiciary, we must know that judiciary, okay, judiciary is not federal. And there is a hierarchy in the structure of judiciary. Hierarchy. Meaning, okay, it is not two different powers. Okay, so there is a vertical division of power. Okay, so I'll just make a drawing so that you will understand. Okay, so we have Supreme Court. Under Supreme Court, we have High Court. Under High Court, we have district courts. Under the district courts, we have subordinate courts. So we call Indian judiciary as an integrated judiciary because we have an hierarchy All the high courts come under Supreme Court, all the district courts come under the high court, the subordinates come under the control of district court. Okay, so we have a system of one controlling the other, and they are ranked accordingly. Okay, so Indian judiciary is integrated. It is not federal. It is having a hierarchy. That is the meaning of integrated judiciary. What is independent judiciary? Independent judiciary is independent from executive and the legislature. Okay, so independent from executive and legislature. Why the judiciary should be independent from see, first, independent means in its functioning, no intervention. Executive should not interfere, legislature should not interfere, judiciary should act by itself without any influence. That is called as independence. Okay, now why judiciary should be independent from executive? Okay, because the executive is the largest litigant. The largest litigant. Executive is the largest litigant. What do you mean by litigant? One who petitions in the court of law, one who files case in the court of law. So it is the executive who files most of the cases. How executive files most of the cases? Because criminal cases are initiated by executive. Okay, criminal case. Okay, supposing a murder takes place, theft takes place. Okay, the criminal case is initiated against the individual by the police. The police initiates the case. So now, if judiciary and executive is together, they are having a collusion. Okay, they are hand in hand. What will happen? The individual citizens will be facing trouble. So if government files a case on an individual, okay, so that individual okay, that individual will be arrested by the judiciary or punished by the judiciary. It happened during our independence time. So during the independence, what happened that when the British government charged on the Indian freedom fighters and placed them before the judiciary said, okay, you did wrong, so you go to prison. So what happens is, by listening to the executive, judiciary may send innocents into prison. This should not happen. That is why we should have an independent judiciary. And legislature, we know that it is the judiciary which validates the law created by the legislature. Whether the law is constitutional or not, whether the law is valid or not, is decided by the judiciary. Now, if legislature is controlling the judiciary, what are the laws passed by the legislature? Everything will be accepted by the judiciary, no opposition. So if you want judiciary to do its duty properly, okay, we want to ensure okay, we want to ensure that the judiciary is independent. Only when the judiciary is independent, we can ensure judiciary is reviewing the law in a proper manner. Now, I will give you a statement. You have to answer. Okay. For federalism or independent judiciary, it's must for federalism. Indian judiciary, independent judiciary is must for a federal country. We have seen what is federalism, what is independent judiciary. Can any one of you explain it? So anybody tell me why an independent judiciary is must for federalism? You know what is federalism? So try to answer. Kishore raised your hand. You can unmute and speak, Kishore.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Good evening. You're audible.
Hello, sir, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Sir, in case of independent duty for India, because the central government, state government can impose some law whenever they are in majority, it may threat larger way. At the
Your
time,
voice is not
the
clear.
independent judiciary is dead.
Your voice is not clear. Your voice is not.
Now is it okay, sir?
Now, yeah, now it's fine.
Uh, Okay, sir. Whenever the country like India, which is a federal country, the independent judiciary is necessary because whenever the party, which is a majoritarian in the parliament or legislature, that may take some law or that may create some law which is not feasible for the peoples of India or peoples for the country. By the time the judiciary can interrupt and do a judicial review, for that the independent judiciary is must.
Okay, you are partially correct, and I'll explain. Independent judiciary is must for federalism because in federalism we have union government and state government. So whenever there is a conflict between the two, we need a third party who's independent to judge. If the central government is influencing the judiciary, whenever there is a conflict between center and state, the judgment will go to the center only. So this should be avoided. Okay, in all cases, that is why independent judiciary is must for federalism. Then only there will be proper separation of power. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so done. Okay, so independent and integrated judiciary is over. Our Indian constitution is a modern constitution. Okay, to understand what is modern, we have to differentiate between what is traditional values, traditional society, and a modern society. Let's say traditional value and modern values. Okay, a modern constitution is one which talks about modern values. So we are seeing the difference. What is a traditional value? What is a modern value? Now, traditional societies are organized based on the principle of inequality. Okay, organized based on the principle of inequality. So if you say Western society, king will be at the head and landlord, serf, and clergy will be in between. Okay, so there was ranking in the society and inequality between groups. Not all the groups were equal. But modern societies organized based on the principle of equality. Equality is the principle. Okay. Then inequality. Now, traditional societies, okay, they have a value of unconditional obedience. So in traditional societies and all, if the parents are saying something, there is no opposition. Okay, we never say no for it. Okay, unconditional obedience is there. Whatever caste is saying, whatever religion is saying, we will obey directly. Okay, there's no questioning of the directions issued by the institutions. It's called as unconditional obedience. But modern societies, they talk about liberty. Okay, so liberty. Meaning you will listen to your parents, but at the end of the day, you will decide what you want. For example, the parents may instruct, it is better you become a doctor, you better is become an engineer or an IAS officer, like that. At the end of the day, it is up to you to choose, okay, what you want to become. Okay, so that is the liberty. Okay, modern values, it is liberty. Then in case of traditional values, primacy to the society is given, primacy to the social institutions. Okay, whereas it is primacy to the individual. I will give you one example. A traditional society, there will be honor killing. See, the traditional society says that you have to marry within the family, within the caste, like that, within the religion. If you go for, intercaste religion, okay, or interreligious marriage or intercaste marriage, okay, the family members itself kill the people, okay, because they think family honor is important, caste honor is important, religion honor is more important than the individual. So the primacy to social institutions. Okay, in case of modern values, they say primacy to the individual. Okay, the choice of the individual. The modern values does not say that traditional systems like family, caste, and religion has to go. Family, religion, and caste should exist for the benefit of the individual instead of subordinating the individual. Okay, instead of subordinating the individual, you have to make these individuals equal. Okay, so it is called as primacy to the individual. Okay, any doubts? Any doubts in this? Now, the primacy to individual is equal to a term in the Indian Constitution, in Indian preamble, that is dignity of the individual. When you say individual is primary, it is you are actually respecting the dignity of the individual. Primacy to the individual is dignity of the individual. So now the words equality, liberty, and dignity is found in Indian Constitution, right? So Indian Constitution talks about modern values, not traditional values. It does not support inequality. It does not support a condition where there is no liberty or primacy to social institutions. The Indian Constitution talks about modern values. That is why we call the Constitution as modern. Okay, that is why we call Indian Constitution as a modern constitution. Done. Next is we'll have to talk about a written constitution. Indian Constitution is a written constitution. Indian Constitution is a written constitution. What do we understand by this? Okay, the Constitution has been written by a constituent assembly. Okay, by a constituent assembly. Okay. The example for unwritten constitution is UK. In UK, the parliament itself creates law and constitutional provisions. There is no separate body called as constituent assembly. So when you establish a separate institution like constituent assembly and write the constitution, it is called as a written constitution. Okay. I would say why a constitution should be created by a constituent assembly. Supposing you are saying constitution shall be created or all the rules for the country shall be created by parliament, parliament will remain supreme. Parliament will take up all the powers to itself. Okay, only when a constituent assembly is established, the constituent assembly will create a constitution which allocates power across executive, legislature, and judiciary in an equal manner. And if there is a state government also, the power between state and central government can be easily demarcated. Because constituent assembly, once established, after it writes the constitution, it will be dismantled. Okay, so there is no future or job like job left after the writing of the constitution. But in case of parliament, the MPs, when they write the rules, they will also once again become the MPs. They will contest the elections till they lose or till they die. Okay, so there is a chance of coming back to parliament, so they will maintain the parliamentary supremacy. Okay, the allocation of powers between the bodies will not happen in the right way. But in case of Indian constitution, okay, we are establishing a constituent assembly, which is works in a specific time period. There will be a start date and there will be an end date, specific time period. Okay, specific time period. But in case of unwritten constitution, that is in UK, okay, so they will be writing the constitution over a period of time, that is not in one point of history, but it is a continuous process. It was not a single process. Okay, so they do it in a specific time period in case of written constitution. Okay, fine. Now we must know this clearly, because whenever you find that it is a written constitution, you will think that written constitution means something which has been written. Unwritten constitution means it's not written. Not like that. Every constitution, every law will be written, codified. Okay, so they, instead of the word write, they use the word codified. Okay, codification means making a law, giving a number and creating a law, writing the law. That is called as codification. Then if you practice something which is not written, codified, it is called as convention. Just because a particular practice has existed, if you practice that, it is called as a convention. See, for example, when a new Lok Sabha is constituted, only the senior most person will be appointed as a pro tem speaker or a speaker to preside over the session. Okay. So it is called as a convention. There is no rule like that, but they follow it just because it was the practice earlier. Usually when governor is appointed, the chief minister is consulted. Under constitution, no need to consult the chief minister for appointing the governor. But however, it is a convention, usual practice that the chief minister is consulted. So conventions are unwritten laws, okay, or uncodified laws. Uncodified laws. Conventions are uncodified. Okay, so you must be able to differentiate between written constitution, codification, and convention. Okay, for a clear understanding. So written constitution doesn't mean that literally we are conveying that it is a constitution which is written. No, written constitution is one where you appoint a specific body called as Constituent Assembly to write the constitution, and you ask that body to complete that process in a given time. Now I'll give you a statement that written constitution is must for a federal country. Written constitution is must for a federal country. Can anybody tell me the reason? You know what is a written constitution, you know a federal country. So how come written constitution is helping a federal country? So since India adopted federalism, they had to go for written constitution. UK is unitary form of government, so they need not have a written constitution. See, a federal country is where you have division of power. You have a union government and the state government. Now, if the parliament is going to write the constitution, it will secure all the powers to itself. Very less powers or no powers will be given to the state. So you have to have a written constitution to ensure the powers are divided between the union and state government equally. union state government. Okay, they are dividing the powers in the rightful manner only when it is a written constitution. An unwritten constitution may be biased to parliament because parliament itself creates the constitution. Okay, so codification and convention. Codified law means when you write the law and put 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. For example, the recently farmers, the code of labor legislation, they are making it one law and they're giving numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like that. They've codified. Okay, so this is what we call it as codification of law. Okay, so all written documents with numbers is called as codification. Unwritten law, that is uncodified law, I should say. Uncodified law is they have not come to the parliament, they have not created the law, they have not numbered the law. Okay, but they follow it just because it is a practice. So convention is a practice. For example, if elderly people is suddenly entering into the room you are sitting, you will stand up. There is no rule saying that you should stand up when the elders come, but you stand up because that is the practice. That is the traditional practice that whenever an elder is coming, we will do it. So conventions are those practices, okay, we follow just because it is a traditional practice, just because it was practiced for a long period of time. Okay. Okay, any doubts in this? Convention, codification, and then convention. Okay, so written constitution is over. Next, we should be discussing lengthiest written constitution. Lengthiest written constitution. The next salient feature, okay, is India is having a lengthiest written constitution. Okay, first, what is the reasons for having a lengthiest written constitution? There are various reasons for lengthiest constitution. Okay, so first is diversity. Okay, diversity is the reason. Yes, 366, you can unmute and speak.
Sir, I have a doubt, like if it is only convention, suppose if in Indian constitution is only through convention means, can we change anything, sir? Means basic structure, like can I shift from socialist to some other form of government, means whether it will be possible if it is only convention means?
Yeah, anything which is a convention can be break. Okay, so nobody is going to question you. Nobody is going to go to the court of law. Okay.
Anything can be broken. Any.
Wait. When we create constitutions and law, we cannot detailing each and everything. Every rule, every things how to manage. We cannot be creating the constitutional provision and law. Then the constitution and laws will become bulkier. So we will say the minimum things. What has to be done, what should be avoided definitely, and leave other things for general practice, traditional practice, conventions. So it is not like, some constitutions are written constitutions, some constitutions are conventional constitutions. No. In both written and unwritten constitution, you will codify the minimum laws of the land. Remaining will be left to the convention, remaining left to the traditional practice.
So this is for both India as well as UK, sir, or
Any country, conventions will be followed. See, that is why I'm telling you. For example, how a husband and wife should live every day and night. Can you prepare a rule book? No, but you can say that once you get married socially, you should take care of the spouse as well as the children. Both of them, both male and female, should take care of the spouse, household, and the children. And normally they should not break up the contract, social contract. So if they are breaking that social contract, then courts will come. You can file a case in the court of law. But every day, starting from cooking, washing, decisions about the studies of the children and all, is left to that traditional social practice. So they are conventions. Likewise, in a country also, basic things will be decided by codification. Okay, codification of constitution and law. Okay, and remaining things are left to convention. That
got
is
it.
traditional practice.
Got it. Yes.
The convention will be in all the countries, all types of countries.
Yes, sir. Got it, sir. Thank you.
So now lengthiest written constitution, diversity is the first point. Okay, then we have a single constitution. I'll just jot down the points first, then I can discuss. Directive principles of state policy. Directive principles of state policy, diversity, single constitution, directive principles of state policy, and then center state relations. And then administrative provisions. Okay, administrative provisions. So these are the 5. Okay, so make note of it. Then uh, uh, diversity means we have multiple groups of people. So constitution has to address the need for each and everybody's needs. Okay, so all society or all sections of the society's needs should be addressed. So Indian constitution is bulkier because we have a multicultural society, we have diverse society. Okay, in some countries we have 1 or 2 groups only, so to solve the problems between them easily they'll constitute a decision. But in case of India, diversity results in lengthiness of Indian constitution. Then single constitution. A single constitution means in case of US you have double constitution, one constitution for the state, one constitution for the center, like what Nagaland is asking, what we had in Jammu and Kashmir. No, central we have one constitution, state one constitution. But in case of Indian constitution, for both center and state we have a single constitution. Okay, and so that is called as that is the reason why Indian constitution is the lengthiest written constitution. Then directive principles of state policy, DPSP. Directive principles of state policy. India is a post-colonial country, right? India is a post-colonial country, meaning we were under the British rule, so we were exploited. Now, immediately after independence, a lot of repair work has to be done. Now, to do a lot of repair work, I mean, socio-economic changes has to be done. So we added an extra chapter in Indian Constitution called as Directive Principles of State Policy. Welfare measures were added to Indian Constitution. Usual constitutions will not have this measures. That is why they say Indian Constitution has become bulkier. The center-state relation. In India, we have a cooperative federalism. How to ensure cooperative federalism? They are ensuring cooperative federalism by talking about the relation between the center and state. Okay, talking about the relations between the center and state. Okay, so the center-state relation is an extra chapter in India. US Constitution or other federal countries does not have this chapter. We have this chapter extra in our Constitution that also result in the lengthiness of written Constitution. Then administrative provisions. First, before seeing how administrative provisions resulted in lengthiness of written Indian Constitution, let us know what are the administrative provisions. Election Commission. Okay, UPSC, Union Public Service Commission. Comptroller and Auditor General. Provisions for citizenship. Comptroller and Auditor General. Okay, provisions for citizenship. Official language. Special provisions for various state. Protection of weaker sections. protection of weaker sections, etc., etc. Election Commission, UPSC, Comptroller and Auditor General, provisions of citizenship, official language, official language. So see how many things are there. So now listen, in other countries, these administrative provisions are part of law. The administrative provisions are part of law, which means Parliament itself will create law and create these institutions, and it can change any provisions related to these institutions. But in India, the administrative provisions has been incorporated in the constitution itself. It has been added in the constitution itself. So when we say it is added in the Indian constitution itself, automatically what happens? The constitution becomes lengthier. Okay, then why this administrative provisions is added to the constitution? Why can't they be allowed to be created by parliamentary law? Today only we saw Parliament can create a law easily. So in India, if these institutions are created by Parliament, these institutions can be easily tampered with. Election Commission, UPSC, and all can be easily changed by the sitting government, and thereby you make all these institutions dummy. If you want Election Commission, UPSC, Comptroller and Auditor General, everything to be effective, to be functioning independently without tampering from the government, you need to put it in the constitution itself. So as we know, to change law it is easier, but to change the constitution is difficult. So when some institution is given constitutional protection, it stays for long. Okay, it is able to manage itself. Okay, any doubts in this? Okay, so Comptroller and Auditor General is a person to see the accounts of the government, do the audited work of the government. Okay, accounts work and auditing work of the government. So they were also added because the CAG should remain independent. All these institutions should remain independent. Okay, so remember that is why, okay, they will say that the 4 institutions as bulwark of Indian Constitution. Why these institutions has to be protected? The judiciary, Supreme Court, the UPSC, Election Commission and CAG is called as bulwark of Indian Constitution. The meaning of the word bulwark is defensive wall. The meaning of the word bulwark is defensive wall. Okay, so these 4 institutions, I'll repeat the 4 institutions: the Election Commission, UPSC, okay, Comptroller and Auditor General, and the Supreme Court. These 4 institutions is called as bulwark of Indian Constitution, means defensive wall, protector of Indian Constitution. These institutions has to remain independent. As long as they are remaining independent, whichever political party comes to power, the Constitution will be safeguarded. So that is why these institutions are called as bulwark of Indian Constitution. So, and the members of these people will be appointed from the bureaucracy. Okay, so they will ensure that the constitutional values is protected. Okay, fine. So let me take questions now. Okay, so whatever questions you have so far and whatever we have discussed today, let me give, because in between I did not have much question clarification session. I just wanted to keep the question answer session for the last. So Vignesh, the thing I told is 1/3 of probability means the chances of all 3 institutions dominated by one political party, that can happen in 1/3 circumstances only, because okay, so there are other options, okay, that in which the president should be belonging to one party, the legislature, lower house and upper house, other party. The other option is, okay, one house is belonging to opposition party, one house is belonging to the same party. The third option, probability that is available is the president, lower house, upper house, all are from the same. Okay, so the probability is 1/3, and I'm saying the probability is less than 1/3 is because, okay, the rapidity of changing of the lower houses once in 2 years. Okay, so the people of America can change the institutions regularly. Okay, to ensure that there is a balance. Please click on the hand raise button and ask. No, please. See, strong government means a government which can take bold decisions despite of opposition. Stable government is a government which exists for the entire 5-year tenure. Prompt government is a government which acts quickly. Okay, does not delay the decision making, it acts quickly. In what ways presidential government is not prompt? This was one question. See, presidential form of government has to go and negotiate the law with the opposition party. So whenever they are creating a law, okay, they may take time to create the law. So compared to parliamentary form, presidential government is less prompt. We cannot say it is not prompt at all. We should say it is less prompt compared to the parliamentary form of government. Is that okay, Raj? Yeah, the same reason, okay. The government is not strong enough, okay, compared to the parliamentary form of presidential form is also strong, but compared to parliamentary form, it is not strong enough because it needs to negotiate, build consensus before arriving at a decision. So unpopular decisions is difficult to take in presidential form. Usually unpopular decisions is difficult to take in presidential form. This generation, no, generally I have an observation. Okay, so you are going to be into a formal institution, that is bureaucracy. You cannot be informal. Okay, so IT companies may teach you that no, you can call by first name, and no need to call the sir and other things. But you must remember, when you get into bureaucracy, there is a kind of formalism that is existing, which you need to follow. Okay, so I generally request to be formal in the class. Okay, yeah. Yes, Shivpriya.
Good evening, sir. Sir, can you please repeat the three principles in that first point, sir? I couldn't get that, sir.
Ministers has to be from legislature. That is the point. Instead of the word ministers, I used members of government. Okay, so instead of members of government, you put ministers. You will understand clearly. Ministers should always be from the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha.
That 6 months, something you were telling now, sir, that I couldn't get, sir. What is that, sir? What is that condition, sir?
It's not a condition. It's an exemption. Meaning, in extraordinary circumstances, a person who's not a member of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha can be made as a minister, but he can remain as a minister until 6 months only, because within 6 months he has to be elected as a MP, either in Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha.
Okay, so then who will appoint, sir? Without election means how he can become MP, sir? Means minister, sir. Sorry, minister.
That is why, the rule is you have to be a minister uh, only if you are an MP. But why this exemption is given is, sometimes if there is a expert is there in a field, he has to be inducted into the cabinet, into the ministry. Okay, but he cannot face electoral politics. Okay, usually experts, they do not compete in the electoral politics because they don't have the time and so expert can be made as a minister, and then you can make him as a MP later. So that is why the 6 months gap is given.
Okay, sir. Then in Rajya Sabha already we will have some experts in certain areas, no, sir?
Yeah, that is 12 people. But once you elect these people 6 years, suddenly there is a special need for the country.
Okay,
For
okay.
example, 1991 we required economists to be the finance minister. Okay, he was not part of the MPs. Okay, we cannot wait for him to be nominated to the MP to Rajya Sabha, right? So first make him as minister, then in any one of the ways you will make him as a MP, either in Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. So that is
Okay.
to have experts in administration.
Yes, sir. Got it, no, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, any other doubts? Specific time. Wait. Okay. So in written constitution, when we say it is specific time period means they will mark the time. That is 1946 you are going to start, 1949 you are going to end. In case of UK, it is open-ended, no beginning date, no end date. Throughout the centuries, whatever law has been created by the parliament has become the constitution. But in case of India, there is a specific time period, start date and stop date. So that is what we mean by specific date. Why center-state relation is the reason for lengthy constitution? See, in other federal constitutions like USA, there is no concept called as center-state relation, or there is no chapter. But in India, we specifically included the chapter center-state relation to ensure the cooperation between a union government and the state government. So that is why the center-state relation related in lengthiness of Indian constitution. So another doubt related to Abdul Kalam was chosen of a president. See, choosing a president right now is an indirect election. Okay. In India, we have president, but we don't call India as a presidential form of government. The president in India is indirectly elected because the real powers is vested with the prime minister. The president is indirectly elected. Okay, so Abdul Kalam was chosen by the then NDA government, okay, thinking that he will be suitable for the post. Okay. Now I've told you that we are always electing a candidate. We think on mind the prime minister candidate and we vote. It is because when we voted in 2014, we voted like, whether it is Rahul Gandhi or Prime Minister Narendra Modi, or in 2019, once again, whether it is Narendra Modi or Rahul Gandhi. So we vote on the basis of the people. Okay, so that is why they say presidential system could be adopted. But as I told you, there are reasons why we have to continue with the parliamentary form of government. Okay, so is there any other question? Okay, so done. Now we'll wind up here because some people, many are left, 35 people now, only 21 is there. I'll wind up here. So we will meet tomorrow. Okay, there I will start with the next topic. Okay, we will discuss one main question and then we will proceed further. Thanks all.